Merry Christmas and welcome to a very special episode of Don't Work Harder. Now, let's see how old you are because I'm about to say a sentence which is going to set the scene. I'm feeling a little bit like Val Doonican right now. Now, if you don't know who Val Doonican is, please Google them. But this is the episode where we're going to get to reflect on, my goodness, what has been such a special year. I hope it's been as special a year for you as it has for the Don't Work Harder team. We are going to reflect on this first year of bringing the podcast to you and also have a little look at our top 10 memorable moments. Just something to break up the hecticness of this period. And for those of you where it's not feeling as hectic as you would like, maybe just a little bit of escapism and a little bit of you just feeling like you are a part of the bigger community, which you are, which is the Atomic community. And we are so pleased that we've been able to have you by our sides as we launch Don't Work Harder this year. When I think back to the first time Andrew and Pete, behind me, spoke to me about Don't Work Harder, it was back in a back end of 2024. So it's quite incredible to see how we've been able to bring their thinking, their creative thinking to life, and a really interesting topic, which is that as entrepreneurs, so many of us hold this belief that the only way to success is to simply work harder. And I think what you've got to see with me over these last few months is that there is not one road to success, and that for the vast majority of entrepreneurs, there have been many downs before there were ups, and even when you do start going on the upwards trajectory, something else normally comes along and changes. So the things that we've been learning is, what is it alongside Don't Work Harder that truly helps you build a sustainable business and a business that you love? And we've got to speak to so many different types of entrepreneurs, and we've done that on purpose because we want you to be able to see the trends that come across no matter what you do or where you are in your business, whether you're a 26-year-old who's just set up an agency or whether you're someone who's a little bit older than that but has maybe been going for like 10 or 15 years. And then when I reflect on my own journey as a podcast host, I think the biggest piece of feedback that I have taken from the coaches, the people that I have worked with, but also from all of you guys as viewers, is it's the real conversations. It's when somebody is really truthful, when they really share the reality of what running a business can be like, but also when they give you those tangible takeaways that help you identify what are the steps that you would need to take in order to achieve that same level or a similar level of success. So it's been a personal journey for me, I think, as well as I hope for you, the viewers that have been on this journey with us. But I'd also like to say a very special thank you to the team, as everybody who is bringing all of this together. So it's everybody behind the scenes, from the studio to the interns that have supported us, to Alvi, our editor, to our fantastic ops team. I'm sure I've forgotten somebody really important, but the entire team that have brought this together, Andrew and Pete for their vision and their faith in me to be able to bring this to you. But also, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you guys for all of your support, because that is what is helping us bring bigger and bigger and better experiences and guests as we've taken this from a studio here in London up to Newcastle and live on stages. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm very excited for what we get to do together next year. And yeah, I think it's time for me to introduce you just a selection. So our top 10 moments from Don't Work Harder this year for you to enjoy during this Christmas period. And as I've always wanted to say, Alvi, roll the clips.
My personality is a big part of me, and probably was the reason Alan Sugar phoned me up, apart from the fact that we knew each other for a long time.
That's what I was going to say. How did he know of you?
So when Alan had Amstrad, it's quite well known.
I like that you get to call him Alan. I'll say
do,
Lord Sugar.
but I get to call him Lord Sugar on the programme.
Okay, fair enough.
I can call him Alan here, and he doesn't mind.
Okay.
But he had Amstrad and I had Honeysuckle, and our paths collided in the Far East.
Ah, okay.
But so I knew him on a business level and a little bit on a social level, but he lived in London, I lived in Leeds. And then he's got a home in Florida, I've got a home in Florida, and Alan is quite friendly with my son who lives there.
Okay.
And I guess when he was looking for a new interviewer, Alan has to have the show is a young show, and I think that's part of the longevity of the show. The audience is very varied.
Yeah.
But I would say the bulk of our audience is a younger audience. But Alan doesn't have very young advisors. He has advisors who I think can relate to what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Which are, I think, part of the reason why he wants advisors who he can relate to. And part of the interview process is, as well as looking at the business plan, the potential and the candidate, can Alan work with them? Can they work with, or can Lord Sugar work with them? Can they work with Lord Sugar's team? That's important.
And it's interesting because suddenly you realise the brief's quite serious, because actually there is someone at the end of this that Lord Sugar is going to invest money in their business. So whilst we can watch it, and particularly the interview episode can be
entertaining.
It can be entertaining. That possibly wasn't the word I was going to use, kind of scary as well. But it's very, very entertaining. But actually, the grilling makes a lot more sense, if I can use the word grilling, when you speak about the fact that at the end of this, there is a big investment being made into someone's business. So there is a serious reason behind these interviews.
There's a very serious interview.
Yeah.
Because there's £250,000. It's not nothing.
It's not.
Plus even a lot more than that, because you're going to be involved with Lord Sugar. You've been on a TV show that's probably the number one show on BBC, and you're going to be in the limelight. So that grilling is important, and you have to get down into the nitty gritty. And that's what I do. I have to dig down, and I have to dig deep.
You dig deep, yeah.
And, and if there's weaknesses there, they have to be exposed, because is the business, he doesn't want to invest in businesses that are not going to be successful. So you have to do your darndest to see this candidate, this business has potential. It might be a bit of a raw product. It might need a lot of, developing and a lot of dressing up and, but the point is the potential there for the business, and is the candidate the right candidate? So it's serious, and it's deadly serious. And so when Lord Sugar said to me, I want you to expose weaknesses.
Right, that was the brief.
Dig deep, and give me good television.
Okay.
Brief.
Yeah. Oh, you deliver on all three for sure.
I did feel that after, and I didn't know if I could do it, but like everything else, I walk through every door, because that's what I say to people. If you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the lottery. So did I know if I could do television? Of course I had no idea. I'd never done that before, just that I'd never done public speaking. But if I'd have said, I can't do that, I've never done that, that'd been the end of it. I wouldn't have been sitting here today on this podcast.
The change for me was my business partner left the business about 2 years before the day when it happened. He left because he was fed up building websites, which I kind of get, because it's after 10 years of doing it, it's a bit of a drain. So I'm running this business on my own. I've got a team of 4 people. We're doing all right. We're doing good money, close to £250,000 revenue. I've got well over 100 clients, like I think close to 150 clients we had. And I was between my, sorry, I'm gonna go in a minute, but
oh, Robin.
Yeah. So between my daughters, we had 2 planned cesareans, and Soph was 3 weeks out from arriving. So there's a lot going on at this particular time. Anyway, I went out with my cycling buddies on a Sunday morning, and flying down this hill, and halfway, towards the bottom of the hill, halfway down, I just broke down in floods of tears. Just go razzing down this hill at like 45 miles an hour, having a mental breakdown, basically. Got to the bottom, and my mate's like, Jesus, what's going on, Rob? And I was like, I'm fine. Just go and line me up with some coffee and cake back at the cafe, and I'll see you there. Anyway, I went to a quiet place that happened to be next to a railway line. I wasn't thinking anything sort of nefarious there to like do anything, terminal, but I do distinctly remember this train went whizzing past, and it just shook me, and I was like, clearly I'm very unhappy with what's going on here. And and you get like sleep debt, and it gradually builds up incrementally over days, weeks, months, and you don't notice it, and then one day you're just floored, you're just so exhausted and ill. And I hadn't realised this, but I'd gradually just been building up this emotional trauma, I guess, with like all of the responsibility of clients and this team, and having all these mouths to feed. And I thought it was all on me, and carrying this weight. And then now I've got my daughter about to arrive with me in this state, and I'm like, I didn't realise it. I've had lots of therapy, so it's all good now. But it was that 18 months worth of between when Poppy arrived and then Sophie was about to arrive that it just crept up on me. Yeah.
Yeah. And where did that moment take you?
Well, I went back to my wife, bearing in mind she's 8 months. Heavily pregnant.
Yeah.
And and she knew that something was not right. So, and I said, look, darling, I've made a decision. I'm gonna it's kind of good news and bad news. And she said, oh, well, what's the good news? I said, I made the decision. She said, well, oh, right, what's the bad news? And I said, I'm going to close the agency down on Monday.
On Monday, wow.
Yeah, because I didn't know any other way out at that point. With hindsight now, I would have done things differently. I now understand, with my knowledge that I built up since coaching, around how to build businesses that don't need you. And actually, with hindsight, I wouldn't have just closed it down. I was promoted one of my team to run it, stepped aside, probably not made quite so much money, but it would have bobbed along quite nicely without. I didn't know that then. So I did. Monday, I went into the office and I said, I gathered in the office and I said, guys, that's it. I've made a decision. The agency's shutting down. I'm done. Means you're not going to have a job. End of the month, that's your last paycheck. They couldn't have been better, by the way. They were awesome, which I hope was a reflection of like how I treated them whilst they worked with me. Really supportive. A couple of them said, oh, we're not surprised. We knew something was up. What do you need from us to like make this work out, like smoothly transition to whatever you're doing next? And they were brilliant. And then Sophie arrived. I had a wonderful time kind of enjoying paternity leave with family. First time I'd actually slowed down in like 10, 12, since my paper ran since I was like 13, so like 20 plus years. And then somebody made me an offer to buy the agency. It just came out of the blue. They'd heard that I was kind of winding things up. So not for a huge amount of money, but it was enough to remove all the stress and worry.
What's interesting is that my sisters and I are all the breadwinners in our households.
Interesting.
And we are all driven to a flaw at times because we've always put work ahead of everything. And it took a lot of evolution for me to become a family man. But what's interesting is that be the best doesn't mean that you have ego. It means that you just try hard and do it properly.
I love that.
And that first job I had, I remember calling her and being like borderline in tears because I was like, I've got no money. Because by the way, I was earning £1,000 net per month. That was my basic. And my rent was 800 quid a month.
God.
And so I had to make sales. And I was like, I have got no money. And she was like, work it out. You got the job, go get it. And she also said, just so you know, you're not coming home. She added, like, obviously, if you were on the streets, otherwise you would. She loved us dearly.
Yeah.
But she was like, it was because we had a very rough upbringing. And so she built this defense of show them all by being strong and making it happen, because it proves that you don't need anyone. And that there's a lot of therapy behind me coming to the point where I can share that. But what's interesting is that it kind of leaked through to our ethos and our values and things like that. So that's all well and good for business. But, it's important to make sure that there's some soul and some emotion and some thought of others and awareness that not everyone is built that way.
Yeah.
So I've kind of come to like be a bit more of a grown up about that side of my emotional palette over the years. But that was huge for me because it was the reason behind me going, like getting another degree, because I was like, I don't think this one looks good enough. I'm going to go and get another one. And like my older sister went to Oxford. And so that was hard for me because I was like, right, the pioneer who got straight A's and went to Oxford, I have to, it was like not outperform her, but there was this kind of push. And my younger sister, poor thing, was like, right, I've got to, fill in, these big shoes too. So there was always this, there was never I'm better than you, but it was always we make success our priority in whatever form it is.
Getting sober for me was like cutting my arm off. It was like a whole part of me that I was getting rid of.
So many people might not know about this. And Teresa, this is something you are comfortable speaking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So would you just tell us a little bit about how long has this been a journey that you've been on?
So it's really hard to kind of think when it started. So basically, trying to give you a little bit of a time frame, my mum passed away very suddenly about 5 years ago. Okay. 4 or 5 years ago. And I had to kind of jump in and do the stuff as you do. My sister and I, were organising the things. And basically, it was a couple of months afterwards, and a friend of mine who is a coach, she said to me, I think you need therapy. And I was like, do you think? And I said, I don't feel great, but my mum did die. And she's like, I think you need therapy. So I started having therapy, and it was great and it was fine. It was very much aimed at my mum, except I used to have it on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. Okay. And I drank a lot. And as you'd imagine, on a weekend, it was way worse. So every Monday morning, I was hanging. And I basically went through 2 or 3 years of therapy before we could even bring it up. So my therapist knew for a very long time I had a problem. I suspected I had a problem, but was absolutely not okay to share it. I had read all these books. I had listened to these books and these podcasts. And I think now it kind of makes me laugh because it's like the fact that I was even listening to books about addiction kind of tells me I had a problem. Like if you're sat there going, I'm just going to listen to this book about addiction to find out if I've got a problem, kind of means you have got a problem, or there's a fair chance you've got a problem. So I eventually started getting to the point where I could talk about, and of course it was easy to kind of bring it up because every Monday I'd be hanging, and also we had been enough in our relationship that she could start to question me. And one of the key pivotal things was my daughter did a week with me and a week with her dad. And on a Monday, I used to take her to the school bus and drop her off at the school bus, and I wouldn't see her then for a whole week. And I'd pick her up the following Monday. And I was so hungover, I couldn't get out of bed. Now, my daughter was taken to school or taken to the bus by my husband. And I got on my therapy call and I said, Paul let me lie in because I was really tired. I haven't been sleeping very well. And she was like, really? And I went, yeah. Really, Teresa? And I was like, yeah. She's like, no other reason. And I was like, because I was too hungover, I couldn't get up.
So you said it?
Yeah. And that spurred me on to try and stop in October of 2021. And I did about 20 days and thought I was fixed. Thought, done it. I can stop. I can, I can't be that bad. I managed to go 20 days. I'm fine. Literally gritting my teeth those 20 days, but I did it. And I was like, I'm fine. So of course I started again. And I remember having therapy going, but I want to drink. I like drinking. And it was my brand. Like, so when I say losing part of me, it really was. I used to go live on a Thursday with G&T with tea, where I would sit and have a gin and tonic live. Everywhere I went, people used to send me stuff, which is so sweet. But like I'd get gifts off people, I'd work with them, whatever. And it was always alcohol based. It was always gin. It was always like, because everybody knew every photo I ever had in a photo shoot, I'm holding a glass. And there was real alcohol. It wasn't a prop. Like I remember having a photo shoot at my house and I made a cocktail to drink while having this photo shoot. Like it was crazy. So basically it got to the point where it was coming up more and more and more and more. And we were realizing it was really quite a problem. I tried to speak to my husband about it while I was drunk one night, not ideal. No. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You haven't got a problem. We haven't. And also I accused him of having a problem as well, because we used to drink very similar amount. And he's like, I haven't got a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. And then basically roll on some more time. I stopped in the October, like I said, for 20 days. I started again. And within 2-3 days, I was back to the level I was. And then I read a book called The Glorious Rock Bottom by Brian E. Gordon. And there's something in it that really shifted. One of the things that shifted was when she went into rehab, her therapist said to her, when you're an alcoholic or you have an addiction and you stop, it's like you're on a lift, right? So you start at the top where you're not too bad and then it gets worse, and getting worse is going down in the lift. And what happens when you stop is you get off and you stand there. Now, what most people think happens, which is what I thought happened, is you went back to the top and you started again. And this guy said to her, no, you just stop. The minute you get back on that lift, you continue to go down. And that was a big one for me. And then my therapist read a book called The Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate. And she knew, obviously, I did a huge amount of personal development. I read all the books. And she said, I'm just finishing reading it. I want you to read it. And I said, okay, it was a really hard book. Gabor is a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
And I read the book and he was talking about addiction, and he does stuff in downtown Vancouver with like heroin addicts and meth addicts, and it's really hardcore. And I remember reading it like, what is she talking about? Like, this isn't me. This isn't my life. And then it got to the bit where he explains his addiction, and his addiction is to buying classical music.
Interesting.
Which feels like ridiculous,
feels
doesn't
light,
it?
doesn't
Like,
it?
you know, that's not an addiction.
There's
What
worse
are you on
problems.
about?
Yeah.
And he talked through how his addiction showed up, and it was exactly the same. And also the other thing he talked about, which I loved, is the science based on what happens to our brains when we're younger and the reasons people have addiction and the reasons they turn to alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. And my therapist has been saying to me for years, it's not your fault. And I actually had said to her, if you say that to me, I'm going to use that against you. So when I come on this call completely hungover, I'm going to go, it's not my fault. And she's like, it's not your fault. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I read Gabor's book. And it finally dawned on me that it wasn't my fault. And at that point, I was able to have some empathy for myself and I was able to feel sorry for myself, because up until that point, I was horrible to myself. I hated myself. I used to beat myself up on a regular basis because every day I promised myself, don't drink. And every day I drank. So I couldn't trust myself, which meant I couldn't show up fully in my business. I couldn't be confident about anything, even though anybody who knew before and now would go, she's the same. Yes, I might have been showing up confident. What was going on in my head was not that. It was like, who the hell are you? What are you doing? You're a disgrace. And I finally got to the point where I'm not going to be able to do this unless I stop, am I? Because I went to wine country in LA and like, we love doing that sort of stuff. I drink champagne. Like I love drinking champagne.
It was lifestyle. Yeah.
Totally. And I finally got to the point where I couldn't. I had to go, no, I have a problem. So I stopped on January the 2nd, 2023, thought I was just going to do dry January. And within about 3-4 days, I realized if I start, I will never stop again.
Wow.
And I remember saying to my husband a few days in, I think I'm an alcoholic, and just burst into tears. And he said, you're not. He said, you don't drink in the morning. And I was like, no, I think I am. And then for the rest of 2023, I sat on the sofa and I watched Grey's Anatomy from the beginning again, 3rd time, and basically only showed up where I had to show up because I couldn't function. It took every inch of me and every breath in my body to not drink.
I had to learn the hard way that my mentality was holding us back. And my mentality at that time was, let's see how much I can do, right? I've always been a grafter, probably very similar to you.
Yeah.
Hard work. I have a great deal of faith in my own capabilities to a fault, whereby I feel that I can figure this out. I don't need to hire people because I can do this. I'll figure it out. And I've always had that kind of like slightly savior mentality, which is unhealthy and unhelpful in some circumstances.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because certainly in some circumstances, you can feel like you're that valued individual who everybody can rely on. And particularly, I guess, where you've got employees, but you at this stage are a business that is going through a huge transition. You've just saved yourself with this cash flow of investment. So this is interesting. So you're thinking, how much can I do? Like, let's keep going. Now is the time to do it. I think this will be familiar to a lot of people. And what happened?
As one of the founders, I'd always seen it say, I need to spearhead growth. I need to be in all the customer meetings. I need to win the big deals.
Yeah.
And it's making me sound incredibly egotistical, but honesty. And you realize you just can't scale in that way, and I had to figure out better ways that I could leverage my own capabilities. I love being in front of customers. I have deep understanding of social media strategy, etc. So I spend a lot of time like consulting with customers, but you don't need that in every single sales situation. Sometimes you just need a closer, right? So on that basis, we started to hire seasoned sales folk. We built our sales function throughout the course of 2020 rapidly.
The first question that everybody asks me is Ryan really retiring? Because I would say this was the smartest or bravest marketing move I have seen in some time. We pretty much broke the internet with your announcement of a retirement and the closure or the taking down of digitalmarketer.com. Ryan, we're starting big. Tell me what happened.
As with most of the things I've done in my life that worked out really well, it was completely by accident. So the plan of the offer and the pivot that we made at Digital Marketer was planned.
Okay.
But the retirement announcement wasn't as planned. And so I'll give you the backstory of that. So kind of going back at Digital Marketer, we have been I would say I would have categorized us as a course and certification business for the past 10 plus years. It was in 2015 when we launched our very first certification. But really, I've been creating and selling marketing related products and certifications since 2000. So I've been in this world for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of longer than I haven't. But over the past really 18 months, people stopped buying our courses. People stopped buying our certifications. It not a little bit. I mean, it fell off a cliff.
Okay, this is so honest.
It dropped by like, it didn't drop by 20%. It dropped to 20% of what it was. So we realized now, thankfully we had other lines of business at Digital Marketer. We had memberships, we had licensing, but the course and certification side just went bye-bye. Now we had seen a little bit of a dip following COVID, because during COVID, everybody was buying courses and certifications, and yay, that was great. And afterwards, obviously, there was a pullback. But over the last 18 months, oh my gosh, it was not good. And so we knew that we had to make a change. We knew that we needed to make a significant pivot. And so we were going to do that at Digital Marketer. I'm happy to share the pivot that we made, but I had decided, we were going to pull all of our courses and certifications off the market. Yeah. And it was funny because everybody thought, they're like, oh, this is just a gimmick. This isn't real. This is another one of those like going out of business sales. Like then you're bringing right back. It's like, no, we're pulling them off because you weren't buying them. So we knew we had to do something different. But the reason that I announced my retirement is the first email that was supposed to go out to announce this was just a single email where it's like, hey, by the way, we're pulling the course off the market. Also, I'm not going to be creating any more courses. I'm done doing this. And it was just supposed to be one email that was supposed to go out to our list announcing, and I'm not going to be producing any more courses because Digital Marketer's out of the course business. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't think anyone would care, but I wrote the opening line for it. It was something along the lines of, I'm retiring from digital marketing and I'm taking Digital Marketer down with me. And I knew that was a pretty strong hook.
It's a good hook, yeah.
I was like, but I mean, I think a part of me was like, if I'm going to be done with this, I kind of want to show the world that like, I still got it. Like I can still write some copy.
Okay, yeah,
I can still produce a hook. And then down below that was supposed to be an extended explanation of why we were doing what we're doing, why I was no longer going to be producing more courses, the change that we were making. Well, the person on our team who was responsible for actually sending out the email, he kind of made the decision at the last minute that all this pesky explanation was really going to hurt click-through rate. And so he sent out the first email with just the line of, I'm retiring from digital marketing and I'm taking my company Digital Marketer down with me. Click here for details. And when you clicked on the link, it just went to a page where we were just offering all of our courses at a discount. And I remember thinking, that's not good. Like that looks really, really bad. Okay. If there's no explanation, it just looks cheesy. It looks kind of scammy. It looks kind of sketchy. Okay. And so one, I kind of freaked out. I was like, what on earth happened? This is one of the things about having a team. Sometimes people on your team make certain decisions that make sense in isolation, but they don't make sense in other places. So kind of in a panic, I wrote this explanation about what I was doing and why I was retiring from digital marketing. I posted it to LinkedIn. I posted it to Facebook. I posted it to Twitter. But I did it just so that anybody who asked, really so that our customer care, if somebody can, emailed in or like, what the heck, this is a scam, they can direct them out. I was trying to get ahead of people being grumpy about it. And I also had them take what was supposed to be at the bottom of the email and put that at the top of the sales page. Yeah. That wasn't originally supposed to be there. Okay. That was supposed to just be in the email. So I'm thinking, okay, dodged a bullet. Got it out quickly. We were able to respond. Only the first few folks on. And then I saw people start to comment. Honestly, I didn't think anybody would care. I did not think that the world would care that Digital Marketer was getting out of the course business. I didn't think that anybody would care that I was retiring from the day-to-day at Digital Marketer, that I was no longer going to be running it, that I was no longer going to be producing courses. I was wrong. People cared, which was kind of nice.
There is so much goodwill out there. And clearly, it sounds like the goodwill just came out of every corner to help. People wanted this to happen for you, which is obviously a testament to you both. Question about the day. What surprised you on the day?
Lots of things. What surprised us on the day? I suppose the actual coming together of the vision around the energy and vibe that we really wanted, and seeing it in the room. So the colours, our brand colours, Sinead and I had a designer design our outfits that were complementary to each other and also represented our personalities. So that was, you know, a bit of detail that tied in with the whole vibe of the day. And just walking into the room and feeling the energy and thinking, wow, this is what we wanted, and it's here. That was just like a huge wave of emotion came over the two of us.
Yeah, when we got to the end of the day, and we did a lot on the day, so we wore all of the hats. We opened it, we did a keynote, we interviewed Gabby Logan, we emceed the day, we closed the day, we did all the things. But I think the overwhelming thing I was left with, you know, first of all, the event management team said they have never seen so many people stay to the end of a full day event as stayed 2 hours, which was really exciting to hear. And especially as it's women who are the most busy people on the planet. So they were still there at 5:30. But just the overwhelming feeling of love in the room, to me, was like real emotion. It was like everybody was lifted by the day. And whilst that's what we set out to create, to actually feel that you have achieved what your vision was, just honestly, I think we rode that high. I mean, I'm still on it a bit, but it just was nothing like I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, it really just felt like winning a gold medal. It really did.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that surprised me was we had prepared ahead of time to pitch for next year's event at the conference, and we were both a bit beforehand. Is this gonna come across okay? You know, is this gonna work? And we had practiced how we were going to do it, and in lots of ways, the energy took over of the day, and we made this kind of impassioned plea and said, if you've enjoyed this conference, you know, say yes. And loads of people said yes. Would you like to come back and do this again next year? Yes, we would. Okay, well, take out your phone and scan the QR code. You can get your ticket for next year right now. And literally everybody in the room, it felt like they also on the stage took out their phone and scanned the QR code, and then our website crashed because everybody seemed to be like scanning in that moment. And how many tickets did we sell in that moment?
We sold at over 150 right there. But one of the funniest things is one of our friends said to us afterwards, like, who has ever bought a ticket for an event a year later with no venue and no speakers?
I mean, if anyone's ever watched the Firefly Festival, it isn't that. But amazing.
We're just pinning down the finer details. It will be even bigger and even better. But like that they got so much from the day that they were like, yeah, we're in. Whatever you're selling, we're buying it and we're here from it. Just feels like
like it was tapping into that momentum that kind of propelled guys.
I run a core program called On It. It's really the heart of my business. It's got over 150 people in it.
The membership that you run.
Yeah. It's a year-long program. It's genuinely magic. It's so simple. On your business, not in it. I love it. But that relies on people. Well, a lot of people choose to pay over the full year.
Okay.
And so I have a lot of direct debits in my business. Sure. And I also have a lot of direct debits from one-to-one clients, brand partnerships, courses, whatever. And I realized at about 10 p.m., I think it was back at the end of June, that all of my direct debits had been cancelled, which had come from a real freak accident with my software where they thought that I didn't want my account anymore. I still don't know why. I can't be bothered to fight with them because that's not where my energy is going.
Yeah.
But all of that got wiped overnight. And so my business lost a lot of recurring revenue that was due to come in. And
then that would have impacted what you were needing to pay out.
Yes, yeah, that's on it is my core of financially of the business.
Right,
it covers everything every single month. That's why I built it in that way. And suddenly it didn't. And yeah, I had to work for probably, about 6 weeks. And then obviously August, we kind of started to wrap it all up, but a lot of work, having to recoup that money, and still a lot of money lost at this point.
What were the first actions that you took?
Probably about a 60-second, let myself be human and panic and be stressed.
Ask you if there was a meltdown.
Yeah, I really believe you're a human before you're a business owner.
Yeah,
and I know sometimes they can come across a bit maybe like clinical, but I really do feel the feelings of being a business owner, and I think you've got to feel it before you take action.
Yeah.
If any of my clients have a crisis, I'm like, you have a minute and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Because have the minute, be a human. But I would say I think it gets easier with time. I've learned the hard way with challenges that getting bothered by things you can't control only upsets you. And so I did have this moment after about 60 seconds of panic of just it's happened. I knew as soon as I saw what had gone wrong, I knew it was irreversible. So I was like, there's no point getting annoyed. There's no point getting stressed. There's no point fighting with anyone here. I need a plan. So it was the notes app of my phone. Like I said, it was about 10 p.m. at night. So I just wrote a quick list of okay,
these are the steps
we're going to need to email people. We're going to need to give people X many days. Yeah. Okay. And then arranged a meeting with my PA because I knew that she'd play a big role in it. Also understood the problem fully. So I knew the number, which was horrible to realize, but I was like, okay, that is how much money we've lost.
Wow.
And then went to bed. And then the next morning just started fixing it.
New levels bring in different devils, but actually they're the same problems, just with more responsibility. But if I know how to handle those problems, and I know the question I have to ask myself when that happens is, who do I need to be in order to pull this off? Do I need to be super emotional? Do I need to take to my bed? Do I need to rest? Do I need to stop for a second and not panic and just give myself a hot minute, gather my beans, and then seek counsel from the people that I trust? And the more that I lean into that, the less that I panic. And I was saying to you right at the beginning of this conversation, this whole thing is a trust fall with myself.
Yeah.
And I think now this level of growth for me is now I'm trusting myself more than I've ever trusted myself. I'm trusting my abilities. I'm being my most me I've ever been.
Yeah.
And I'm embracing every single inch of that, including the panic, including the anxiety, including, we've been here before. We know how to do this. Who do we need to speak to? Who do I need to be? What energy do I need to pull from within myself in order to make this happen? And also ask the question, do you need a day off?
That's what I was going to ask you. So what do you have to build in to your working week?
Days off.
Right.
I'm yet to get that right. I'm getting that not so right still because the pressure is real. And I think there's a bit of ego at play as well. I think a lot of people who relate to this,
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly take a day off. And then you realise that the business doesn't run if you are not well.
Yeah.
The business doesn't run if you are fat, if you are not fat. You can't serve your clients to the best of your ability. If you're limping in on your calls with them, not even on half empty, on a minus tank. And so you owe it to your business, to yourself, to your mental health, to your clients to make sure that that's built in. Even on the days where you go, I need this day to hustle. I need to hustle. The feeling is very, very visceral, but you can't make good decisions from a position of panic and stress.
There's always soft signals. There are always soft signals that are very, very easy to ignore. And when you ignore those soft signals, they turn up as loud, big shouts. And that's exactly what happened to me. I ignored the signals to rest, to take time out, to sleep more than 4 hours. It was all there, the aches in the neck, the grumbles in the tummy, all those signals are there. The waking up feeling exhausted, thinking exhaustion is just part of life. I'm a mom, I'm a doctor, I'm raising a family, I'm working hard. It's all of that. And you just take it as part of life. But then that signal showed up for me as a fever. But what I didn't realize then was the next time I'd be back in my consulting room would be 4 months later. And the next time I'd be home in my bed would be 4 weeks later, because I got admitted to hospital. I went home, got into bed, and was admitted to hospital with a fever that I just couldn't shake. And that's because I didn't have the resilience. When you say, was it cumulative? Yes. because I'd lost that resilience to even fight a fever. And I didn't know then to call it burnout, because to me, it was sort of an admission of being breakable.
Of course.
I did have that near-death experience.
What happened in that moment? Because you were fortunate enough that it was just a warning. And now you live the lifestyle that you live, you teach others. What was going through your mind? How did you know that something needed to change? Why was it not just a fever, just a virus, and you were going to be fine?
Yeah, because when I say I had a near-death experience, it was exactly that. You know, people say you see the light. And I did. And there was a light, and I was running towards it. And it's that realization about the fragility of life and how really fragile it is that gave me that moment of insight that if I don't take care of myself, and part of that, you know, over time, and I'm talking over a timeline, one thing that I did do was go to India. And going to India, it was like a calling. Like you said, did you have a calling? And maybe it was a calling, but it was just a really strong need to go to India and volunteer. And I'd never volunteered before. And then I met a man who was the very first centenarian that I'd met. He was 106. I met him and I held his hand. And it's the most incredible thing when you hold the hand of someone who is 106 years old. Just that feeling of wisdom and just how. Yeah. And that was my question to him was how? How did you become 106 years old? And so I asked him, and he said this one thing to me. And what he said to me was, he said, I've been kind to my body, so my body has been kind to me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed them. Were they the 10 that you would have picked? Yeah, I think it was really interesting watching them and reflecting back. And even as we were picking those tips, like really remembering those kind of key conversations that we've got to have over the last year. So I think all that remains for me is to say season's greetings to you and your loved ones, and a very happy new year. And we look forward to seeing you for our brand new episode next Monday.